Today we are talking about climate change and the fact that, hey, it's already here and we need to protect our future. Our guest today is Dr. Fredolin, Tangang, Climatologist and Fellow Academy of Science Malaysia. Welcome to the studio, Doctor.
Thank you, KG. Thank you, TRAXXfm, for inviting me to this program.
And today there's a lot to talk about, especially this very, very important topic. Now, before we start, let me just, for our listeners out there, let me just say climate change is a global phenomenon driven by human activities such as burning fossil fuel, deforestation, currently poses unprecedented challenges to environment, economies and societies worldwide. This includes rising temperatures, extreme weather events, rising sea levels, ecosystems being threatened, food security and human health. And today we will be talking to, of course, Dr. Fredolin, the Fellow Academy of Science Malaysia, climatologist, former UN IPCC Working Group 1 Vice Chair, and a former UKM professor. And we'll be talking about the current state of climate change and let's see what we can do about it. Now, Doctor, let's start with the questions. In recent years, which I think a lot of us have experienced, there have been heat waves. There's been sudden heavy rains leading to floods, even in places where we never expected there to be floods, which many of us might not realize are actually clear indicators of climate change. Can you explain to our laymen, to our listeners, what is climate change?
All right, thank you, KG. Thank you for having me again. Explaining climate change in a later terms can be a daunting task. But let me just say it in a simple word. Climate change is we can understand it as significant changes in the climate system. You're talking about temperature perhaps higher than the average. You're talking about changes in the wind pattern. You're talking about extreme getting more frequent, more intense. And this can be caused by natural forcing, such as volcanic eruption, but of course lately we're talking about human influence, associated with burning of fossil fuels, cutting forests, and so on. And if we look at what happened, in a much longer time scale, in million of years, climate change has been occurring naturally. The evidence from the paleoclimate indicates that, like 60 million years ago, temperature was around 12 degrees warmer than the current in the pre-industrial period, and the CO2 level was about 2,000 part per million. So climate has been changing naturally, but what worries us this anthropogenic climate change, which is driven by human activities, unsustainable human activities, and it's occurring very fast. Naturally, it takes millions of years for climate system to change, but human activities drive climate change in a much faster pace, occurring in hundreds of years or so since pre-industrial. Now we're talking about temperature, which is already reached 1.3 degrees or so higher than the pre-industrial period. And not only talking about temperature, we're also talking about changes in the extreme events. We're talking about flooding. We're talking about heat waves and so on. And this will the trend will continue unless the countries in the world manage to cut down emission and limit the warming below 1.5 degree.
Yeah. And of course, we've seen, I think one constant indicator was the fact that ever since the industrial era started, which was late 1800s, I believe.
Yes.
I think temperatures have been going up steadily. Every year it's hotter than the last year. So that is indicated that we have already reached, as you said, 1.3 degrees compared to pre-industrial era. Right.
Correct. In fact, when we look at the record last year, the second half of the year, starting from June, we have 11 months. It could be 12 months if May this year is also considered the warmest May on record. But it's already been confirmed that starting June last year, June 2023, June, July, August, and so on, 11 months consecutively, those months were declared as warmest months on record.
Which means the Earth has never been that warm during that month.
Correct. 2023, the annual temperature 2023 basically was declared as the warmest year on record, and this is around 1.4 degrees higher than the pre-industrial period, and of course, that is still below, close to 1.5, but still below to 1.5. But if we look at the individual months of those warmest month, the recorded temperature, the observed temperature, have already been exceeding the Paris Agreement target. For June, for example, June 2023, the temperature was 1.81 degree higher than the pre-industrial period. This is already much higher than
what we expect.
The Paris Agreement target 1.5. But to be fair to the listeners, to make them understand, it's not just the human influence that drive the temperature higher. We do have the so-called natural fluctuation or natural variation within the climate system that can make the temperature or extreme a little bit higher at a particular year, a particular month, and maybe a little bit lower. But the background trend is going up. But you have this kind of if you look at the graph, you kind of wiggle going up and going down, and that is caused by the natural variability within the climate system, which can exacerbate, which can make it even higher. And we're talking about the El Nino,
the phenomenon.
2023 was an El Nino year, and that El Nino continues to 2024, and now in the process of weakening in the system, the ocean in the atmospheric system in the Pacific Ocean, basically going into the normal neutral phase now. And because of this natural fluctuation, what we experience can be combination of the climate change, the anthropogenic climate change, and also natural variability.
All right, Doctor, we're definitely going to be coming back to that later on. But right now, let's talk about some of the studies and measurements. How does a scientist study or measure climate change, worldwide?
Well, when we're talking about how scientists measure climate change, we're not just talking about temperature. We always refer to global warming, or of course, global warming, talking about temperature, but climate change can be, So if we ask a question of, how scientists actually arrive into a conclusion that climate change is real. Let me just talk about the IPCC. KG, you have mentioned IPCC earlier, So in 2013, the IPCC, that's the United Nations Climate Change Panel, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, published a report, a fifth assessment report, we usually call this AR5. And one of the key messages in that report was climate change is real, and human influences are the cause. And that was the fifth assessment report. The latest report, which is the AR6, the sixth assessment report, which was published in 2021. One of the key messages was the recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, intensifying, and unprecedented in thousands of years. So, the way IPCC, making this conclusion, when IPCC was established in 1988 and subsequently published a post-report in 1990, there was no conclusion, evidence there, but they were not able to make such a conclusion. But it takes a few iterations, a few cycles, and of course, in the fifth assessment cycle, they said, this is real, and human is the cause. And then the last report, they said, wow, it's like a cancer already, where the message says that widespread, it's not just one location, worldwide, rapid, intensifying, and unprecedented thousands of years. So, getting back to your question, how did they actually
study and measure?
Study and measure. So again, as I said, it does not depend on one single variable, but in fact, IPCC report was an assessment report, which means that thousands of scientists actually part of this assessment process assess these scientific articles published by scientists, real scientists like myself, around the world. It's not just developed countries, it's not just in America, UK, but
it's a global thing.
It's a global effort by scientists. And IPCC assess this knowledge and come up with a report in an assessment process which is open, transparent, robust, and produce this report as a guidance to the government, basically. So when you're talking about assessing this climate change, it's not just talking about one variable, but all components of the climate system. We're not talking about the current time. We're also talking about in the past, like the last million, several million years ago, 60 million years ago, and so also the future using models. So this is a holistic assessment of looking at the climate system, basically. Yeah.
So there's a lot of big data coming in, and then all of it is being put together under IPCC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, and of course, this is something that we got to know. In Malaysia, localized, what is the primary cause of climate change?
Well, I mean, Malaysia is just a small country.
It is. I mean, physically.
Yeah.
Physically it's a small country.
So happen. We are sandwiched between two big oceans. And from time to time we experience flooding, we experience heat waves. So like many countries, as I mentioned earlier, when you're talking about changes in the weather, in the climate that we experience, it is a combination of course, climate change, but also, the climate variability component, especially the El Nino or La Nina. We are talking about when El Nino occurs. Our region, our country, basically located in this so-called rising motion of the Walker circulation, which is like east-west, atmospheric circulation. When El Nino occurs, this kind of circulation actually changes. Instead of the air is converging into our region, it's basically diverging away. And this is why during El Nino, we tend to have hot weathers and dry weathers because the moisture actually moving away. So occasionally we experience this once in a couple of years, but at the same time, we have this on the background, temperature is rising up, because of the climate change. So I wanted to say this actually, KG, but I forgot in the earlier stage. When we say climate change, we're always talking about greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, nitrous oxide. This is actually a very small amount of gases
they are causing
in the atmosphere. CO2, for example, is only 0.04%. Methane is minute,
negligible.
Yeah. As compared to the main component, nitrogen, oxygen, argon, those actually, but those gases do not play roles in controlling the amount of energy going out from the system. But these greenhouses, they do. So the amount in the atmosphere is very small, and when they're small, any changes that contributed by human can make a big impact.
Yes.
This is why when you're talking about climate change, also scientists measure this fluctuation. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to visit one measuring station of CO2 in Sumatra. Managed by the Indonesian Met Services, BMKG. And I was actually kind of amazed to see the graph that CO2 that measured. It's very much consistent with other stations around the world, especially those in Hawaii, basically. So again, when you're talking about climate change, you also need to look at this CO2 and for Malaysia, of course, the fluctuation of extremes, temperature, and so on, can be both influenced by the human activities. Not just in Malaysia. Malaysia is a very small country, as I said, but global emission as well. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Doctor, I absolutely agree. And earlier we were talking about the primary causes of climate change in Malaysia, of course. And one thing that I read recently, and I was very surprised. You always think it's fossil fuels and all of this that produces, gases, like you said, the CO2 and the such. They cause a lot of issues, right? But I was very surprised to find out that even the beef industry has contributed so much methane into the atmosphere that's actually caused a rise in temperature. I was surprised that even standard things that we don't believe can cause climate change can cause issues such as that. What's your opinion on that? Is it really as aggressive as you would say as it is?
Well, I really believe in science.
Yes.
And as I said, these gases, they're very small, but they play a very important roles in controlling the
energy,
the heat that's supposed to
escape
from the climate system. But since they're very small, it's easy to change the composition, and this is why you're talking about beef industry, cattle industries. We're not talking about in one country, but perhaps worldwide, and that effect accumulate and certainly have effect on the climate system. So, but not just of course the cattle industry. We're talking about the forest deforestation and so on. People perhaps don't understand when we cut forest is a vital carbon sink. It's supposed to absorb the CO2, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So when you cut it, meaning that you reduce the carbon sink already. So doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. When you're talking about the causes of climate change, either it's natural or human. Basically, you're talking about CO2 concentration, the greenhouse gases concentration. In the past, in a million years, like I mentioned earlier, 60 million years ago, the temperature was about more than 10 degrees, and the CO2 concentration was about 2,000 part million, as opposed to the current one, 430 part per million. But 60 million years ago, we don't have anthropogenic human activities, of course. So but still the greenhouse gases, still greenhouse. But what we have now, 430 part per million, this is already very high, unprecedented, at least the last 2 million years. If we look at the paleo record, the paleoclimate record of this glacial interglacial, which is associated with the changes of the Earth orbit, for the last 1 million years or so, the CO2 concentration is just, the range is just between 200 to 300 part per million. So during this glacial interglacial, but for the last 100 years or so, since the beginning of industrial era, human activities actually keep pumping this CO2 that's supposed to be in the ground and into the atmosphere, and the ranges and naturally 200 and 300 per million. Now it's just what we have is just beyond this natural range, and basically, in other words, I can say that human basically changing the trajectory of this Earth's climate into uncharted territory as far as human is concerned. And if we care about our future, if we care about our survival, I think we need to bring this trajectory back into
manageable
thresholds, a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
This is why we need to ensure, the world need to ensure that the temperature increase, must be within 1.5 degree, not beyond.
All right, Doctor. What we're going to do, we're going to take a very, very short break, and we're going to be back in just a few moments. And of course, today we are talking about climate change, protect our future, right here on TRAXX. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back to TRAXXfm. In our studios today, we have Dr. Fredolin, Tangang, climatologist and fellow Academy of Science, Malaysia. Climate change, protect our future. Doctor, combating global warming and climate change is a global concern. This is not something that you can do just one country or not. In your opinion, how did the other countries fare in their handling of this issue?
Well, definitely we need to fix this climate change, as I said, bring back the trajectory of the Earth's climate into a cooler regime. Model shows that if we continue this kind of trend, by the end of the century, we will end up like 4 or 5 degree warmer. How do the other countries, I mean the rest of the world, actually fare in not very good actually. I mean the data shows that the pledge emission under the Paris Agreement will not bring us into the level of 1.5. Instead, the pledged by many countries, including Malaysia, of course, will bring us into around 2.5 to 3 degrees by the end of the century. That means that we need to have rapid and deep cuts in the next couple of years. And let me just perhaps share with the listeners here the latest IPCC report. In 2019, the annual emission, KG, the annual emission of the greenhouse gases was around 60 gigaton CO2 equivalent.
Wow.
Pardon me, I know maybe listener are not very familiar with this unit.
So giga is 1,000 tons.
Many zeros.
Many zeros.
So according to the IPCC, if we were to limit the temperature increase by 1.5 degree at the end of the 21st century, this emission has to be reduced by 50% by 2030 to around 20 to 30 gigaton, and net zero by 2050.
Net zero by 2050.
Yeah.
Wow.
Net zero means that net zero CO2 meaning that whatever we release, that's supposed to be absorbed by the
plants and
the
all
plants or whatever, and so nothing is being added into the atmosphere. But the pledges by countries under the Paris Agreement certainly, is not sufficient to bring this down, and hence this is why the need to rapid and deep cut in the next couple of years. And you're talking about 2030. Now is already 2024. It's about
6 years.
6 years or so. The question is, are we going to be able to do this?
Yeah. It takes longer to build a condo nowadays. Right. Doctor, you are one of the leading climatologists in Malaysia. Now let's talk about the COP28 conference, which was held in Dubai last December. What were the key highlights and outcomes, especially regarding its focus and objectives?
Okay, let me just share with the listeners here. Sometime you heard IPCC, sometime you heard about COP
28
meetings. The last one, of course, COP 28 in Dubai, and coming one COP 29 in Azerbaijan. So the COP meeting actually is an instrument or venues under the so-called UNFCCC, the United Nations body as well. And this conference is basically places for stakeholders, countries in the world to negotiate on various things, including how to reduce, the emission. So IPCC, on their hand, talking about the science of climate change, producing report, and so on. So in fact, UNFCCC was established because of the IPCC finding. So COP 28 was very special because you had COP meeting previously, from the first one until, of course, and 2015 we had the Paris Agreement. Countries made pledges, on how to cut emission and so on. So COP28 is a very special session, or a very special COP, because this is where countries will evaluate how effective the pledges actually, and the science of how effective of these, emission pledges provided by the IPCC. And the IPCC finding says that it's not enough, and this is what we call stocktake, global stocktakes on how, But other than that, of course, the other important issue that was discussed in the COP28 was the energy transition. Whether you phase out or transitioning away. Phase out is like, you give an ultimatum, a particular year you need to phase out, but transitioning away is like, a slow kind of...
slow and steady kind of deal.
Slow and steady kind of process, Of course, during the, I followed this meeting as well. So during the COP28, most countries that affected by climate change, wanted to have an agreement, a consensus on this phase out. But of course, it's also influenced by other countries. We say countries that have interest on the fossil fuels, and in fact, UAE also is very strong on the proponent of the fossil fuels.
Yeah, because that is their main business.
Yeah, and at the end, what was adopted was transitioning away. And a big question. Of course, the detail is not there. Perhaps this will be hammered in the next COP meeting, in COP29 in Azerbaijan. Big question is, are we going to be able to, meet what has been reported by the IPCC, the need to have drastic cut 50% into 20 to 30 gigaton annually by 2030 in net zero by 2050. Are we going to be able to do this by
that is a big question.
Transitioning away?
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. Doctor, another short break coming our way. We'll be right back before we come on with the final part of our interview for today. We are talking about climate change on What Matters. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Tracks. Welcome back to Tracks. We are with Dr. Fredolin, who's a climatologist and fellow Academy of Science Malaysia. Climate change, protecting our future is what we're talking about. Doctor, briefly, what are the consequences of climate change on the environment, ecosystem, and wildlife?
Well, we are very concerned with climate change. It does not only affect us directly, humans, anatomy, you feel uneasy when you have heat waves and so on.
Yeah.
But the same for many ecosystem. You're talking about the terrestrial ecosystem, the flora, the fauna, the marine ecosystem, and study shows, and all documented by the IPCC Working Group 2, which specialize on aspect of impacts and vulnerability. All of these ecosystem have already been impacted by climate change, and the risk increases
year by
year, and if temperature continue to rise. And of course, we're not talking just temperature. We're talking about sea level as well. Malaysia is a maritime country. We're also very much affected by.
Yeah, we are covered on all sides.
Yes, affected by sea level rise in years to come. So when you're talking about impact on ecosystem, all are impacted. But of course, a certain ecosystem are more sensitive to temperature rise as compared to others. You're talking about, earlier you mentioned about corals. Corals are already affected, even with the rise of still below 1.5. I think by if the temperature rises to 2 degree or beyond 2 degree, perhaps coral will be wiped out almost perhaps 70 to 80%. So but not only the ecosystem, of course, human is dependent on the services provided by this ecosystem. So if this ecosystem is affected by climate change, indirectly, and the impact will also be on the human livelihoods, the economic, and so on.
Mm-hmm. And in your opinion, as Malaysians, what are some of the preparation that we need to make to fight against climate change?
Well, first of all, I think I don't have any study, but my personal reading is that when it comes to awareness, we are still not very good as compared to the developed country. If you compare with Japanese, if you compare with European, in fact, climate activism also not very strong in Malaysia. When it comes to political, perhaps a political party also, they don't really consider climate change as an important issue. But I think, when we're talking about climate change, we're not talking about, we're not worried so much about what is the weather like tomorrow or next week or next year. We're talking about, the future generation that will be facing in 50 years and 100 years from now.
Yeah, your children, your grandchildren.
Correct. And this is something so I think Malaysia need to be part of the solution, and there are a lot can be done. For example, at home, we can reduce our energy consumption, turning off light that is not needed and so on, reduce the air conditioning, and for those can afford, I think we can starting to shift into solar energy. I walk the talk, for myself. Actually, I installed the solar panels, and I managed to reduce my reliance on the fossil fuel by at least 60 to 70%. So, but many things that can be done also, perhaps taking public transport and so on. So there are plenty of things that can be done.
Well, simple things that you can start at home. Like, for instance, when I first moved into my house, compared to my previous house, everything was halogen, everything was pentafloor and all of that, right? Moving into my new house, everything's LED. Everything is DC mounted. So, yeah, being able to choose energy efficient products, if everyone did that, it would reduce the load on the grid. It will reduce the number of fossil fuel that's being burned, just to keep our houses warm and comfortable, right? So I guess it is an entire Malaysian thing. It's not an individual thing. Malaysians need to do this over time. And also, I think people like developers, right? When they're building new houses, make it energy efficient compared to previously. Give them options, right? Correct. And I think that would definitely work better. Correct. And of course, good on you, Doctor, for using solar to power your house as well.
Yes, be part of the solution.
Be part of the solution.
Part of the problem.
Yes. And of course, thank you so much, Doctor, for coming in today. An absolute eye-opener of a topic today. We hope to have you again in the future. And that marks the end of our interview for today. Of course, Dr. Fredolin Tangang, climatologist and fellow Academy of Science Malaysia, has been our guest today. And I hope it made a change in you as well. For our listeners out there, please be more energy efficient to reduce the climate change issues that we have today. And we spoke about climate change, protect our future. Right now, though, it's back to the music and also the news at noon with Peter Carlos. I'll be back in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.